It is one of America's oldest unsolved mysteries, and it happened in our own backyard. What happened to the lost colony of Roanoke? The Roanoke colony didn't vanish into thin air, it moved, survived, and blended into history. And after 400 years of dead ends and wild theories, archaeologists might have finally solved the mystery. For centuries, the disappearance of the 115 English settlers who landed on Roanoke Island in 1587 has haunted historians. It's been called America's oldest unsolved mystery, a tale of ambition, tragedy, and a single cryptic word carved into a post, Croatoan. But thanks to a 16th-century map, some invisible ink, and a relentless team of archaeologists, we're closer than ever to knowing what really happened to America's first lost colony. Let's rewind. It all began with a dream establishing England's first permanent settlement in the New World. Backed by Sir Walter Raleigh, a group of colonists set sail across the Atlantic, landing on what's now known as Roanoke Island off the coast of North Carolina. They built homes, raised families, tried to carve out a future. But supplies ran thin, tensions with Native Americans flared, and Governor John White made the decision to return to England for reinforcements, a trip that should have taken months, not years. When he finally made it back to Roanoke in 1590, the colony was gone. Completely gone. The only clue, Croatoan carved into a wooden post, a name referencing a nearby island, today called Hatteras Island, and its native tribe. White assumed the colonists had relocated, just as they'd said they might if danger struck. But he never found them. No bones, no structures, no signs of life. And just like that, the legend of the lost colony began. Theories piled up fast. Some said they were killed by hostile tribes or Spanish raiders. Others believed they starved to death, were swept away in a hurricane. More outlandish ideas included alien abductions, supernatural curses, or secret treks to the mountains. But in 2012, researchers at the British Museum noticed something strange. They were examining an original map drawn by John White himself called La Virginia Pars when they discovered hidden symbols visible only under backlight. These symbols appeared to show the location of two small forts roughly 50 miles inland, exactly where White had once written the colonists might go. Suddenly, the Roanoke mystery had a direction, a literal X on the map. Archaeologist Nick Licchetti and his team at the First Colony Foundation began excavating the area near Bertie County, North Carolina. They dubbed the site Site X, and it didn't take long before things got interesting. Just outside the boundary of an old Native American village, they uncovered shards of English pottery, dishes, jars, and food containers dating back to the late 1500s. Not Jamestown, not later settlers, these were older, rarer, Roanoke era. Excavations expanded. In 2019, they began digging Site Y, just a couple miles from Site X. There, even more fragments emerged, including ceramic pieces from Spain, the Netherlands, and England, items that didn't just suggest trade, they screamed long-term residence. And the kicker? No English pipes. None. That's huge, because early 1600s Jamestown settlers were notorious pipe smokers. The absence of these pipes hints that Site Y predates Jamestown, a sign that the artifacts may indeed belong to Roanoke survivors. William Kelso, the man who famously uncovered the site of Jamestown itself, called the findings one of the greatest discoveries in early American history. According to him, this is it. The puzzle might finally be complete. But not everyone agrees. It's our history and heritage as well as yours, one voice says. But you know, it's part of that shared story. Under layers of dirt, the team found what they came for. We did test the isotopes, it is English copper. You see where earrings become fish hooks and glass becomes arrowheads. There is evidence to support other theories. Professor Horton says there might not be just one answer to their fate. Archaeologist Charles Ewan from East Carolina University remains skeptical. He warns that the team might be trying too hard to prove their theory rather than disprove it, the cornerstone of scientific inquiry. Then there's Scott Dawson of the Croatoan Archaeological Society. He argues the answer has always been obvious, the colonists moved to Croatoan, just like they said they would. And he's got evidence too. Over the past decade, Dawson and British archaeologist Mark Horton have led digs on Hatteras Island, uncovering 16th-century weapons, writing tablets, and even part of an Elizabethan sword. These weren't dropped by accident, according to Dawson. They belong to the colonists who made Croatoan their new home. So who's right? The inland theory with its pottery shards and buried map secrets? Or the Croatoan hypothesis with its island artifacts and direct historical references? Maybe both. I'm pretty confident that one group at least, and probably the substantial part, came out to Hatteras Island. I think that it's almost a duty to learn about it. This is the birth of America, and this is the real story. It's a story of failure, but these failures are what the success of our nation is founded on. James Horn, a respected historian and board member of the First Colony Foundation, offers what might be the most reasonable and most human explanation yet. According to him, the fate of Roanoke's lost colonists might not be a single story but many, a tapestry of choices, split paths, and scattered survival. He proposes that the 115 settlers didn't vanish in one cataclysmic event. They adapted. Some of them, Horn believes, likely heeded their plan to relocate 50 miles inland and made their way toward Bertie County, perhaps hoping for more favorable conditions. Others may have moved toward Croatoan Island, now Hatteras, where they might have found refuge and support among friendly native communities. And when you pause to think about it, that scenario makes a whole lot of sense. This wasn't a professional army or a single-minded expedition. This was a group of everyday people, families, craftsmen, farmers, women with children, facing the brutal unknown. In the face of dwindling supplies, conflict, and an ocean that separated them from everything they knew, they had to make unthinkable choices, stick together and risk being wiped out all at once, or split up, spread out, and increase the odds that someone might survive. Divide and endure. Some might have looked to the mainland, desperate to build something new with the knowledge they carried from England. Others may have placed their hopes in neighboring tribes, exchanging tools, culture, and maybe even bloodlines in return for food, shelter, and safety. And maybe, just maybe, some never wanted to go back. Maybe they saw in indigenous life something freer, something different, something better. And while those decisions erased their identities from European record-keeping, they didn't mean failure. They meant survival. At Site Y, the First Colony Foundation's archaeological teams are still methodically peeling back the layers of time. Each pottery shard, each soil anomaly, each tool fragment is a whisper from the past, a subtle nod from someone who once walked this land in hopes of creating a new life. The English ceramics found deep in the dirt, particularly the food storage vessels, suggest permanence, not panic. These weren't colonists hiding or running. They were living, settling, cooking, eating. And what's even more remarkable is how the timeline begins to align. These artifacts appear to predate Jamestown. There are no English tobacco pipes, a staple of Jamestown life. The ceramics found have origins stretching across Europe, not just England, suggesting a broader trade connection, maybe forged with native tribes. These people weren't clinging to the past. They were adapting to a new world. It's a quiet, powerful image, once English settlers learning to live as something else, neither fully native nor entirely European, emerging a transformation. One that wasn't documented in ink, but embedded in pottery, in soil layers, in genetic echoes. And that's what makes this theory so compelling. It doesn't erase the tragedy of Roanoke, it reframes it. Instead of a tale of disappearance, it becomes one of resilience. Not everything lost is gone forever. Sometimes it just changes. Now imagine being one of those colonists, stranded, forgotten. Your governor promised he'd return, but he never did. No help, no ships on the horizon, just land, wilderness, and the uneasy peace of starting over. Would you follow your group inland, trying to build anew? Or would you walk into the territory of the Croatoan people, hoping they'd take you in? And what if they did? There's something quietly heroic about that, about embracing another culture, not just for survival, but for community, for future. And maybe that's why, after all these years, the story of Roanoke haunts us. Because it's not a clean ending. There's no final battle, no mass grave, no burnt-out fort, Just absence, a whisper, a single word carved into a post, Croatoan. It's an invitation to imagine, to fill in the blanks with hope, tragedy, or something in between. And now, finally, we might be getting real answers, not from dusty tomes, but from the ground itself, from tiny buried clues left behind by people who didn't vanish. They evolved. Even now, the debate continues. Some experts still argue the colonists all went to Hatteras. Others believe the inland site at Bertie County tells a different story. And it leaves us with some powerful questions. Let us know what you think. Were the colonists divided? Did some go to Croatoan while others slipped inland into the unknown? Were they wiped out or woven in? Drop your theories, your questions, and your mind-blown reactions down in the comments. We seriously want to hear them.